There was a time in my life when I was saving money to build my survival business when I was basically a carny, somebody who worked at carnivals and festivals. I sold t-shirts, and for a long while I actually sold snow cones, believe it or not. And during that time I met a guy who was a really interesting character, okay? And he would always tell me, he had this booth that he called the Junkateeks, okay? And it was all these random little kind of flea market-y items that he would sell along beside me at fairs and festivals and events that I would see him at. And he would always say to me, Creek, I make my living on the smalls. Okay, I love it when I sell a $50 item and a $100 item, but it's really rare. What I sell most of are my $1 and my $2 items. And for me, in my life, that's what pays the bills. And I've never forgotten that, because it's true in a lot of different things in life, and it's certainly true in survival. In the wilderness, in a survival scenario, your life, your food source, will be predominantly dependent on the smalls and your ability to find the smalls. Things like frogs and fish and rabbits and squirrels and chipmunks and things like that. Rarely in a survival scenario will you score a big buck or an elk or a wild boar, okay? Sometimes you just got to focus on the smalls. And there's a big misconception when it comes to small hides, like this little tiny 12-inch by 12-inch rabbit hide right here. A lot of times people will discard hides like these, and it really is a shame. A chipmunk hide or a squirrel hide or a rabbit hide like this would have never been discarded back in the 1800s, back before the 1800s, back in the times when all of the animal was used. And today I want to teach you a really interesting skill called spiral cutting. It's not complicated, but it is a little bit outside the box when it comes to small hides. And it's a way to utilize a small hide like this one as kind of what I call accessory leather for making other different types of projects. The example I use most often when it comes to spiral cutting hides is to make rabbit blankets. In the American Southwest in particular, it was very common to spiral cut desert jackrabbit hides and weave them into some of the warmest blankets that you could ever find that would keep indigenous people and indigenous cultures warm on really, 20, 30 degree nights in that part of the world. And so that's the skill I'm going to teach you today. It's a way to utilize these small hides for lacing and, drawstrings and lacing for boots or bags or anything like that. And it's just a really great skill to tuck away in the back of your head just in case you ever need to utilize it. And so what I'm going to do here today is I'm just going to take this small hide and I'm going to start right in the middle, okay? I'm going to start right in the middle and I'm going to draw a spiral, okay? I'm going to make this one about 3/4 of an inch wide. Now, I'm just going to literally start right here, right in the middle of that hide, and try to keep this spaced as evenly as I possibly can. And I'm going to keep on drawing like that right there. I'm not the best artist in the world. This could be done with almost any kind of, doesn't have to be a marker. Could be a charcoal. I'm just going to spiral. I want to keep that spiral as even as possible all around in this circle. And I'm going to go until I can't spiral anymore, until I hit up against the edges of this hide. You can see I've hit that edge right there. Probably going to hit this edge over here, and at that point go a little bit farther here. I'm widening out a little bit, but it's never going to be perfect. So the lacing, or the piece that I'm going to be using here, is going to be roughly 3/4 of an inch thick. All right, now that we have our spiral traced onto this hide, onto the buckskin side of this hide, the hairless side of this hide, we are going to pretty much just cut around these lines. Okay, we're going to trim away all of these kind of chunky pieces first, and these could all be utilized as little pouch lids, or I mean, as hand protecting pads for flint knapping, things like that. I would never just throw these pieces away, but we're going to discard them for our purposes today. So you could do this at home with a pair of scissors and make it really easy, but I'm going to show you a way to do it if you just had a knife. And I'm going to use the Mora 511 knife that we included in the Mass Exodus Apoca box. So I'm going to stab this knife really nice into some wood. It could be a log. This is just a bench. And what I'm going to do is I like to pull my hide through like this right here. Okay, now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this exterior off. You can see how I'm pulling my hide through, just being nice and careful. Sometimes I got to move it. What I'm doing is I'm pulling up like that right there, and then I like to drop it back down. Once I get started, I like to start at the bottom and pull it up one entire cut, and then I'll do the same thing right here. Start at the bottom, pull it up, start at the bottom, pull it up, and I'm just going to keep that process all the way around here, like that right there. We'll go all the way around until I've trimmed off the exterior of this hide. All right, so I'm almost to where I started. There we go. Pull it through. And here I am to my very first starting point right here where I started to cut. And when I get close to that, what I want to do is I just want to trim that exterior piece off like this right here. And so here is what my starting hide really is going to look like. And you can see that when I come in and start cutting right here, I'm going to just follow this spiral all the way through to the very middle. And what's going to be left is a big long piece of hide that I can utilize for all kinds of different purposes in a survival scenario. It could be, it's basically cordage, right? It's basically leather cord, three-quarters of an inch thick. I could use it for shelter building. I could twist this and reverse wrap it and easily make a bowstring out of this for, I mean, you could potentially make a bowstring for bow and arrow, but you could certainly make one for bow drill, okay? The uses are limitless. So what I wanna do, I'm going to set my scraps to the side that I'll just keep and use for some kind of a project later, is now I want to come in and I want to start in and just follow my lines all the way to the very middle. And I'm just going to take my time with this. Okay, I'm not going to overcomplicate this. I'm just going to take my time and enjoy being outside. All right, perfect. So you can see now there's all kinds of hair that's going to fly off of this thing because I've cut through a hide with hair on it, but that's just a part of this. Couple little draws through your hand will get rid of most of that, like that right there. But check this out. I've got a wingspan of about 6 feet or so, maybe even a little bit longer, and this is easily that, maybe even. So we've got close to 7.5 feet of some type of a cord that's pretty strong. Rabbit hide isn't the strongest leather in the world, but this could be twisted up. This could be twisted up. It could be reverse wrapped. It's a really cool piece of cord for tying off a bag. You could easily tie some shelter pieces together with something like this, but the uses are really infinite when it comes to survival. So we've turned what is a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of leather into something that has a lot more functions in survival. Cordage, rope, cord. And so I thought that was a really cool skill to teach because it definitely goes along with the skills that have been forgotten, the skills from the 1800s and before, where people utilized every part of an animal because they lived survival each and every day. So post your pictures of the cord you make from your rabbit hide included in your Apaka Box on Instagram using hashtag ApakaBox. I appreciate your subscription and look forward to showing you what's in store next month.